Hello, everyone. Welcome to DNA's April webinar, a topic that's very relevant to so many issuers, groups, raising capital online. Applies to any founder, marketer at that, but pivots that can help you regain campaign momentum. If you haven't tuned into our webinars before, they speak very heavily towards investor acquisition, a tough audience to reach online, investors. But if you're able to crack that code and do it successfully, you can accomplish it at scale. Now, when we look at the market, I'm going to dive deep into it, but just as a precursor, the majority of campaigns don't hit their goals. I'd say 50% of the market's pretty stagnant at any given time in its history. The top 10% really move, but we'll see companies, issuers, teams in that lower 50 percentile then emerge beyond the top 10%, even to the top 1%. And we're going to talk about how that occurs today. So if you've run a marketing campaign before, seen the momentum slow down, even feel plateaued, this is going to apply to you. If you're running an investor acquisition campaign and having that experience, we're going to be going into depth today. And joined here by Janette Cornish, one of our account managers. Janette's been with us for over 3 years now. And Janette, excited to be here with you today. You want to familiarize the audience a bit with who you are and what you get to work on a daily basis?
Of course, of course. I don't think we have all day to go into that. It's a pretty long list now. But good morning, everybody. Excited to be here to talk all things about regaining momentum for your campaign. As mentioned, I've been with DNA for over 3 years. So I've worked with plenty of offerings, hundreds of offerings, and have worked with some of the top campaigns and everything in between. So definitely excited to share our insights and yeah, advice and how to pick things back up.
Well said. And Jeanette is being modest when she says some of the top campaigns, those are some of the top campaigns in the industry to date. So that's what's in the background. We'll be able to probably give some examples of those specifically here. And our creative director, Brendan, and his team put together a beautiful presentation for us every month. April is no different. So if you're not familiar with DNA, we've worked on over 500 investor marketing campaigns that have collectively produced 9 figures of capital. We're working with some of the top Regulation A plus issuers right now, groups that have raised 30 million plus, 20 million plus. Uh, that is what we feel an obligation to share, what we see working and not working in this vertical, which again can be applied to larger scale marketing. I'm Jason Fishman. We've been doing this for Reg D campaigns for 10 years now. Pretty wild the way time flies. But I get to speak to issuers every day. I mentioned the 500 plus we've worked with. Picture 5,000 or more that we've spoken to. I'll lead workshops, I'll work with accelerators, I'll work with solopreneurs on concepts, on strategies beyond the campaigns we're able to directly manage. And it's a common obstacle. Our campaign has lost momentum. Maybe the momentum never started, but that's what we're going to be looking to huddle around today and give you actionable insights that can be applied to your campaigns directly. Now, Jeanette, you've started with groups that are in the planning stages. You've started with groups that are plateaued, as well as issuers that are scaling. What
Mhm.
does this conversation look like when they come to you and say, "Hey, Jeanette, we don't know what's happening, but we need to gain momentum"?
Yeah. I mean, that is the goal, right? Is to have momentum and to keep it consistent. There's so many things that you can look at, whether you're just starting or whether you've had a strong start and now you're starting to lose that momentum. But really, all of it kind of points to your marketing strategy. And that marketing strategy entails different things: your advertising, your content, your outreach, right? So, kind of breaking that down into 3 sections and really deep diving onto, okay, what is your current recipe? What isn't working? Obviously, something's not working, right? But really looking at it in niche magnifying glasses and then breaking it apart. I know we're going to dive into the deep, deep parts of it. I don't want to give up too many at the beginning, but essentially we'll be looking at those three sections and going from there. Okay, you lost momentum, but what does that look like? What kind of creatives, what kind of messaging? And then we're able to kind of create a new strategy, pivot, and test some things from there.
Test, optimize, scale. Is that what you said?
Pretty much, yep, that's exactly what I said.
I joke around. It's something we say a lot here. It's our approach towards not just marketing, but entrepreneurship, growth as a whole. And I like to think of everything as numbers. Only way to measure is with numbers, right? So can use grandiose words, can be very articulate in how we talk about a campaign's movement. But signs a campaign has entered a slump or stalled, less visitors, slower investment, less traction, potentially a lower conversion rate. It's important to diagnose this, having a strategy. And we've put out webinars, we've put out articles, we've put out all different types of checklists on how to build your campaign strategy. If you fail to plan, you are consciously, subconsciously planning to fail. You're assuming it's not going to work. You want to have a well-oiled machine of a plan that takes into account what's happening in the industry, what other groups are doing to market to your audiences, who you're going to be targeting, what channels you're going to be reaching them on, both paid and organic, the content, the creative that's going to go into each of those channels, partnerships that could help accelerate, and most importantly, projections, an algorithmic roadmap to your goals. And if you're not producing enough visitors, you need to explore different traffic sources. I'll speak with groups that are plateaued and they say, our offering page just isn't working. And I ask to see their analytics, and I find that they've had under 1,000 visitors to their offering page to date, and they've seen 30 investments and have raised 60K from that. And I have to tell them, you have a 3% conversion rate. You have a $2,000 average investment. These are higher than industry averages. It sounds like you just need more traffic sources. So it is it, it's mandatory to look at these metrics and then start to explore the creative, then start to explore the funnel you're taking them down. What are some key stats that you like to look at, Janette?
I like what you were just saying there because, it is based on the traffic and breaking it down and seeing, okay, well, based on what you're spending, how many impressions are you getting? What's your click-through rate look like? There's kind of this dashboard of front-end metrics that we can look at and see right off the bat, um, whether it's good or not. And then from there, decide, is it just the traffic source? Do you need more of that same traffic? Or is it a totally new audience that we need because um, everything's super expensive? The clicks are expensive. You're not getting investments. So some of the key indicators, obviously, that your campaign has stalled is looking at that traffic and saying, okay, well, out of the visitors, nobody's investing, or out of the visitors, I know here it's saying out of every 100 visitors, maybe fewer than two are actually converting. So that's probably not the best metric, right? We want to look at these stats and then pivot from there. So, uh, conversion rates that we're looking at 1 to 2% of all traffic that's coming to your page. This is cold prospecting traffic usually. As we get into retargeting and remarketing funnels, it might change a little bit as we're scaling the campaign. Um, but there are different stats that indicate there is momentum being lost. And, just breaking it down and understanding and diagnosing is the first start to understanding what we need to do next.
Yes, setting those expectations of what is going to occur in the first few weeks, the first few months, how you're going to be adding to that mix. Maybe, once it's working and performing rolling closes, taking disbursements of capital out of what's raised, investing portions of it back into marketing. But you have to take into account that there's going to be a spike if you do a substantial announcement, promotion, marketing push at the beginning, and that's going to slow down after the first couple weeks. That if you're hitting a 2% conversion rate, you're in a good place. Meanwhile, most of the traffic's not converting, and that 2% may take place as an average at the end of the campaign. So you have to continue remarketing to people. It's going to be 7 touch points or more before these audiences convert. Don't give up if you drive 100 people there and don't see 2 investments out of the gate. They may actualize at a later point. And I actually look at a different stat of 50% of Reg CF, regulation crowdfunding campaigns, won't produce over 110K on average when I look at all Reg CF campaigns to date. If I look at 2024 averages, and you can find all of this data on King's Crowd. There's Crowdfund Capital Advisors. There's a lot of great places to look at stats. King's Crowd's very easy to use, and you can look at the advanced search and find data on all Reg CF campaigns uh, that have gone live. You can look at just the ones that are live. You could sort by industry, valuation. There's a lot of research that could take place there. But in 2024, half the campaigns didn't produce 60K or more. So it's a matter of determining those traffic sources, what you're going to be reaching those audiences with, and what funnel you're taking them down ultimately. Now, strong stats don't always last. Uh, Many campaigns experience a slowdown. So, Janette, why do you think that occurs? And what are you speaking to founders, to CEOs, to marketing teams about uh, during those type of discussions?
Yeah. So it's actually very common to have these hills and valleys in a campaign and just probably in life in general, right? Everything's not super consistent.
Sure.
So most campaigns, if you've done some pre-launch, if you have some friends and family in the gate, if you have some sort of an audience, typically you have a strong start. Um, the middle is just kind of that part where people might lose interest. They saw the excitement of the initial campaign has slowed down, and there's nothing really that's keeping them going to want to interact with the campaign, let alone invest. So as mentioned here, people just are losing interest in general. There's nothing that's sparking them to say, oh my goodness, I have to invest, FOMO, I'm missing out type of thing. So the one thing that can also happen is content fatigue. People, just kind of posting the same thing over and over, very mundane, not really posting about milestones or keeping people interested with different sort of video formats. So I would say, it is common, but there's also ways to get creative, and people want to be entertained. Everybody's on their phone all the time. We all have phones, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. And so what can we do to really show your story and have people become excited as you are to have this offering and be the CEO of your own company, right? So it's really about asking the right questions, making sure that the content matches that, so that people stay engaged in that middle, what we call the middle funnel of your campaign.
I think our account director, Abby, calls it the hard middle.
That's a good one.
And it's such an important thing to look at here because it's not just linear growth. It's not just a chart that, starts at the bottom of your raise and ends at the top of it. For most issuers, there's always outliers. Most would follow this path over here. Many successful campaigns are going to have many repetitions of this where there's lift and then it slows down a bit. And then there's a new announcement and it goes up further, and then fatigue's happening. We're testing new creatives. It's just not landing. It's just not resonating. Something new to point at, showcasing traction, third party validation, perhaps, and then it's up again, and then really getting into that final push. So it may appear linear if zoomed out enough, but there's a lot of ups and downs throughout, and you have to begin taking into account, what is going to keep people interested. How are we going to avoid fatigue from these target audiences? Because it's all in the follow up. Whether we're talking about getting an investor to come in offline, whether we're talking about a digital campaign, the stats are there. I like looking at sales stats, and Most salespeople don't follow up, let alone more than 3 to 5 times. Meanwhile, most sales take place between the seventh and 12th interaction. The same is true of digital. It could be far more follow-ups and touch points, but you have to be avoiding fatigue and creating engagement. You have to get them more excited. You have to generate a fear of missing out through that period. So if you're planning that out in the strategy, if you're building your content calendar on a weekly, biweekly, monthly basis, whatever it looks like, you have to really design an experience that's going to get audiences from one stage to the next and converting at higher levels. So, common breakdowns in campaigns, traffic comes from the wrong audience and it's not converting. You want to cast a wide enough net. You want to have A B test different variants of audiences you're going after, and not just have your assumptions going in, but let the data show you this is what's working. You need to do more of that and have those data driven decisions. Creatives become ineffective without testing variations. Similar concept, A B test, different visuals, different messaging. Uh, what may work for you offline could potentially not produce for you online. I like to think it will. But again, you need it to show up in the analytics, not just your own thoughts. And founders limit testing by running too few of assets or messages. Cast a wide enough net with the audiences, have enough running in terms of creative, look to identify pockets of performance. Hey, audience two, creative three is really driving, it's overproducing. Let's reallocate more of the daily pacing of the advertising allocations to those segments. Let's do more email outreach, LinkedIn outreach. Let's get more content out. Let's work with these publishers more because we could see it physically producing. But if you are not running enough, testing enough, your hands are really tied. Even if it's working, you could go into a slump and have nowhere to turn.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely think that audiences are key. We need to be speaking to the right audiences, right? I know we have our own internal audiences of investors, and we definitely want to start there, but we can get even more niche from there. We can target specifically based off on the offering and maybe what investors are into. Are they into DIY gardening? Are they into DIY real estate projects? Are they into watching certain investor-based shows? That type of interest targeting is something that we can do, and we find it to be very beneficial. Um, we also like to tie that into the analytics. So sometimes by changing the audiences, maybe it's becoming too expensive, maybe it's still not converting. We need to rethink that again. It might be expensive, but it might be converting. So hey, that's working, right? So as you're mentioning, really looking at the data to make informed decisions on how to pivot, what decisions to make, and go from there. I also think that the A/B testing of creatives, as you mentioned, is important. I know some founders are like, oh no, I don't like this, or you know, uh, for whatever reason it's too salesy or too product focused. But sometimes there's that fine line of product focus versus like the investment opportunity, and it's kind of marrying the two in content and then letting the numbers decide. So even if not everybody's on board for a certain content piece, the thing with our ethos is test optimize scale. So it doesn't have to last forever. We can let the data tell us, hey, it's not working, right? And then shut it off and put something else in. But it's that constant keeping it fresh, keeping it new, and giving people options to really dive into.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Setting up the campaign to give you the right data and then actually using the data. Data is only as good as what you do with it. So being able to shape the next iterations of the campaign as a result. What are some mistakes that you commonly see, Janette?
Oh man, it's crazy because you probably see more mistakes, right? Than people just kind of being optimistic and listening to suggestions. Obviously it's an emotional thing. These are founders, these are, people's businesses and livelihoods. So I get it. It's definitely can be a touchy situation. But I would say the most reactive thing that a founder could do is to just shut off and essentially give up, right? Stop marketing the ads and just completely switch it off. Is just that's probably the most detrimental thing you can do, right? Because how are you now getting any sort of traffic to your campaign? How are you even giving your campaign a chance at this point? So I would say that is probably the most common mistake. Um, is to shut off ads, and we definitely don't recommend it. We want to give you suggestions. We want to try new things. Um, and as we've mentioned before, just let the data speak to us. It's almost like a science. It's really about the numbers and it's matter of fact. So try to avoid those emotional decisions, keep an optimistic outlook, and as mentioned, pivot. We have different ideas, different things that we've seen work, right? We've had founders want to give up, and then we come up with a different strategy and it works, whether it's the founder doing more, um, putting themselves in the spotlight a little bit more, and whether that's doing selfie videos or maybe a podcast, maybe hopping on a webinar and just really authentically speaking to your audience. We've seen that work. We've seen that help to turn around campaigns. Um, but under pressure, we get it. It's easy to want to shy away, but that's the last thing you want to do if you really want to make your campaign work, is just essentially giving up.
If you were running an e-commerce campaign, marketing best practices would have you look at 3-month or longer test periods. I understand that the dynamics are different for capital raise. Founders, CEOs want to look at cost of capital. Eh, The fact that they're trying to raise money, not spend money. I understand all of these points, but it's important to look at advertising campaigns, organic content marketing initiatives, outreach campaigns with a long enough window to actually test and optimize. If you can look at the digital analytics, you can touch the variable points we've talked about: audience, creative, even funnel, the destination URL, whether it's the offering page, a landing page that is set up to produce signups for a webinar, a live event. These are movable pieces. You can touch them, you can move them, you can manage them. And if you can manage them, you can manage them to a point of effectiveness. These tools will work. It's a matter of how to get them to work. And if you're not giving yourself enough time, it could be a total loss, a loss of your marketing budget, a loss of the time you spent to set up your offering that in many cases requires legal partnerships, submitting with accountants, your financials, your audits, your forms to the SEC. I mean, it'll be a few months, in some cases, over a year, multiple years I've seen, to get one of these deals live. So why give up on it? Because you've spent a little extra time, a little extra advertising budget to get it there. Uh, Once you're able to find a winning scenario, the right audiences, creatives, and funnels, you can systematically continue this. You can scale it up, with the right creatives, with the right updates being added, with the right, movement. But we'll watch founders that, as Janette said, were going to give up on equity crowdfunding. They were going to give up on their capital raise, in some cases, give up on their business. And we were able to speak to them as marketers and let them know what we're seeing, and continued. And within a few weeks, we're able to see not only a lift in performance, but them asking us to scale. And campaigns that, were 100K got to 7 figures. We could give you examples of campaigns that were going to stop at 1.5, 1.8 million. I could speak to several of them where we were able to build enough confidence in what's possible with the marketing campaign, and that those founders later hit their full goal, the limit. And we're very thankful about that later on, almost acting as, a workout coach, saying, hey, you have 5 more reps to go here. You hit the reps. Now we need to go further. This is where real growth is going to occur. So do not stop. Play the full game, play out your round, and look to see better performance later on. It can absolutely culminate. Now, when we see one of these campaigns, we want to look first into an audit. Janette, what does that look like?
Definitely want to look at an audit. So a marketing audit, I'm going to kind of go back to my beginning um, introduction when I was mentioning that there's three common marketing tactics that we're using. So we're looking at your paid ads, we're looking at your organic content, and we're looking at your outreach. So that could be cold email outreach, it could be a LinkedIn outreach. So those are really the umbrella of things, right? Or there's marketing, and then those are the three different scenarios between each. So really analyzing each of those steps. So with ads, there's a whole dashboard to look into. Your traffic, how much is it costing you? What's converting, right? So looking at the audiences, looking at the creative and breaking it down. So, per each creative, what audience is reacting? How much is it costing you? Is it costing you way too much? Is it click super low and it's costing you a lot of money? That obviously isn't working, right? So we probably want to pivot from there. On the organic side, we can look at, how are people reacting on your social media? Are people actually clicking links there? We could also track that traffic to your landing page, right? There's what we call pixels that are installed, and that basically on the back end allows us to see all of the traffic that's happening in the digital realm. Um, Also with messaging. So whether it's LinkedIn messaging or email marketing messaging, we could look at your open rates, we can look at your connection rates and really see like, okay, well, this audience is not connecting with me at all. They don't like my messaging, or this audience is saying we're getting lots of no thank yous. We're not even getting to the next step of hopping on a phone call, right? So something's not connecting. So that's kind of the audit. It's really numbers based, and it's really breaking it down into each step in each funnel and then kind of deciding, okay, what do we need to switch? Is it the creative? Is it the audience? Is it the landing page? Maybe the landing page is getting a ton of traffic and then people are hopping. So what about my landing page is not keeping people on? What points are we not grabbing people with right away? And that's a whole other recipe of landing page and auditing your landing page. Um, we like to speak about landing page as prime real estate right at the front, right? So that is where people hop on and they're seeing your offering. And we talk about the glance test. So is it passing that glance test? Is your headline really capturing your full offering in the investment scope of things? Do you have a campaign video? Does that campaign video play automatically? And is it grasping you and answering all those investment points right away? Do you have your top 5 reasons to invest right away? Kind of all in this same, you know, prime real estate of your landing page. So it's really breaking down all of those different channels and coming up with a strategy. Maybe some of it we keep, right? As you're mentioning, some stuff might be working, so we can keep that to the side. Maybe even refresh that and say, hey, we have seen this work in the past. Maybe it's slowed down. So what can we do to maybe give it a new video, a new feel, a new twist on copy? We know people like this mission. We know people have clicked on it and converted in the past, but maybe it's getting that fatigue. So let's go ahead and refresh it. So there's so many different things that we can do to audit and to break down and to give us the insights that we need to really make decisions. But yeah, I like to kind of start pretty broad with those three things and then break it down.
Get back to the fundamentals of the page, the campaign, everything about it. You're speaking about how important offering pages and landing pages are. The conversion rate is the single most important metric. Has to be from scalable traffic sources, or at least confirmed once that's added to the environment. But definitely somewhere to focus the time and add landing pages. You're not committed to that offering page forever if you're not seeing the right conversions. I've spoke to groups that were advised to have lighter content on their offering page, not feature pitch video, and had trouble changing, editing the page for whatever reason. So by adding additional steps before they get there, you could still have those enhancements and are not handcuffed to just that one destination URL for the lifetime of the campaign if it's not converting. So, as you're saying here, Janette, campaign issues are data puzzles, not personal failures. I was taught early on, and I don't fully agree with this, but that business is emotionless. There's something to take from that where you can be more successful if you're able to remove emotions from the actual reports, the actual numbers. Hey, here's how much traffic's getting to the page. Here's what the advertisements look like, the actual dashboard. Here's what the email marketing numbers are showing us. This is what the outreach analytics look like. Uh, if you're removing that feeling of failure, looking at it as more of a not a blank canvas, but a canvas you're continuing to paint, you can make the corrections. If you are so stuck to your predictions of these audiences, this creative, this messaging, or we don't need these channels, we don't need those, we don't need to talk about this, you're setting your own obstacles up for yourself. You have to be able to look at it objectively and ask, hey, what do I need to add here? uh, Bodybuilder example. There's famous bodybuilders from the 70s that would look at pictures, videos of themselves, and as an artist say, hey, I need to work on my deltoids more. Let me bulk up my shoulders more. Let me do this. Let me do that. There was others that were defensive and suffered and kept doing the same things, expecting different results. Definition of insanity at that. You have to be able to critique yourself, critique the campaign, remove the word yourself at that. What do we need to do based on what the data is telling us? What do we need to test out? What options do we have to get us there?
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is a mindset, and you have to just prepare yourself. It's really it's a mental marathon as well as just a marathon in general for the race. So, um, as I mentioned earlier, just really being optimistic, and you said it best, taking that emotional aspect out, which is hard. I know we're all
Oh yeah.
human, but it is really a mental exercise for yourself, to take some of those emotion aspects out of it and really just dial into uh, the analytics, the strategy, and we know it works. We know it can work. What can we do to shift that puzzle to make it fit, to make the audience see, and to eventually get you those investments coming in?
And leading into that, visibility drives belief. Founders must stay public and active. So, going back, campaign issues are data puzzles, not personal failures. And we've had founders say, I don't really want to be on video. I don't really want to do selfie clips. I don't need to talk about what I'm doing each week. The page is going to do the selling. We're going to be fine. Meanwhile, we're showing them competitors and their campaigns and that those top 10 percentiles, the top campaigns, top issuers. I like to say the most proactive founders have the most successful campaigns. And those top campaigns often show them, on video, in public, being active. They're at this conference this week. They were on this podcast last week. Here they are shaking hands with a new partner in person at their offices with a lead investor, an anchor investor at a dinner. Here's them with their team. Here's them giving, words of inspiration. Here's them saying thank you to the investors and speaking to them further. It is a present element on many of these campaigns. So being able to add more content that really brings the founder to life and appear as a relatable person, a friend, someone that the investor has a relationship with, we see show up in the conversion rate. So if we're just using static graphic images and advertisements and content pieces, if the page doesn't showcase a video, and we make those recommendations, we'll commonly see a lift afterwards. Again, founders could take it personal and say, I said we weren't going to do this. But I find the top issuers tell us things along the lines of whatever it takes to produce the results. It has to be on brand, but our brand's ever evolving. We could elevate the brand in different scenarios here. And we could test things out. If they're working, we'll do a lot more of them. So it could often appear showing the, it could often require showing the appearance of the captain of the ship and how they're steering it to their destination. It's a very important thing. I mean, you want to create that fear of missing out from the audience and show them, hey, we're getting to this destination with or without you. Look at all the things I did this week. Look at all the things I'm doing next week. Look at how we're growing as a company, how we're taking on more market share, how we're filling our rounds. You may not even have a chance to invest pretty soon here. So can't emphasize this one enough.
Yeah. I like that. Just to add to that, we're in a time where people do want to see the behind the scenes. People are sharing their get ready with me, and they're like most, um, you know, what used to be, your private time of your day is just now part of everybody's life, right? So that's kind of the mindset is, if you're a founder, you're almost like the influencer for your company, right? So really opening up that door of engagement to show, as you're mentioning, just that authenticity, almost like, yeah, you're speaking to your investors and you're following as friends. It does really go a long way. We see not only selfie videos, but just, putting yourself out there in any aspect, whether it's, speaking events, conferences, podcasts, webinars, and just really be in the forefront of the offering of your company. People buy into people. So if you can instill that trust and, you know, be okay with that, we have seen it have a lift, a shift. So it's definitely having that mindset of, okay, I believe in my company. I'm not afraid to be the forefront of it, and I can share, why I believe in it so much. And I think it comes across well, and it converts.
I try to think of the top CEOs as well, and love them or hate them. I think some of them are, political topics at this point, but you don't talk about Tesla. You talk about Elon Musk. You don't talk about Amazon. You talk about Jeff Bezos. For years, my whole upbringing was Bill Gates. Steve Jobs, now Tim Cook, Warren Buffett, Larry Ellison. It's these individuals and their brand who
Mhm.
are pulling the company, the brand behind them. You almost have more trust because you feel like you understand them. They're not just a faceless organization. And it's even more important for a private company that's looking to bring in investments from retail audiences, let alone accredited, who have more deal flow to look at. So you really have to make sure you're telling the right story and it has the right narrators around it. So, as mentioned, most successful raises have hands-on engaged founders. There are ways to streamline your time commitments around this. We'll limit the amount of time clients have to spend with us, have to spend. They could always spend more, but we have, our weekly reporting calls and approval processes. We can have, several hours of production take place just from video clips, brief interviews we do with them. So there's ways to do it smarter, but it needs to be present to the audience. Um, how do you adjust the marketing strategy? I'll get into this example afterwards, but Jenna, how do you adjust the strategy?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of taking it back to the basics, what that strategy entails. So, what are we currently doing? And without changing who we are as a company, right? We don't want to do that because there's paperwork, there's so much into it, right? And you just don't want to change your whole branding, right? You believe in yourself, and we want to get you across that goal and that finish line. Um, but there's several different ways. So, we live in a content consuming world. And so there's so many different ways to consume content to get your message across. And so it's really looking at, okay, what are we currently doing and how can we kind of refresh that, right? So if we've been doing a ton of static graphics, maybe it's time to, ask for that selfie video from the founder if they've kind of been shy behind doors. If they just are adamant about, hey, I don't want to do it, there are influencers, and whether they're micro influencers and they only have a few thousand followers up to, the largest influencers in the world, they're influencers for a reason, right? um Sometimes that really helps. So maybe creating a partnership with an influencer in your space that has a trusted audience that can, come on board and really explain why they're partnering with you and why they believe in it. And, they're not only able to share that with their audience, but then we could also repurpose it with our organic content audience, but also maybe push it out as a paid ad. There's so many ways to repurpose it and use it for marketing purposes. So there's different ways. Webinars, obviously we have our own DNA webinars, but we also have our client webinars monthly. So maybe switching up the style of that webinar, having a brand partner come on, maybe have a top investor come on and really speak their truth. And that third party validation can go a long way. So there's different ways to kind of shift. But really, I would say it's getting creative, probably adding more video, pivoting from the current messaging, coming up with something more creative. Sometimes it might be something very clickbaity and maybe, that just gets people in the door first, and just kind of testing controversy or looking at competitors and maybe throwing a competitor name in there, right? And just showing how we're so much better, or even auditing a competitor and saying, hey, this is working for them. Maybe, we've missed the boat and we didn't try that. Let's use our core ethos and try this. So there's so many different things, but it definitely is a mindset. It's a shift. Um, and yeah, it's still about testing it. And then once we see that it's working, kind of pouring into that and doing more of it.
And that's what we did on this campaign for life imaging. And I've actually run additional rounds, still work on their marketing till today. But this campaign was years back, and it's an example I like to bring up. It's one of many where this has occurred, but what they actually do makes it that much more filling for everyone involved. Basically, life imaging was forwarded to us by the platform they were on, and we're going to give up on equity crowdfunding. We're unsure what they were going to do as a business without the capital. They were stalled at about 100K. We were able to run advertising, see a decent return, and then really lean into it, refresh the content, come up with different testimonials that we were able to showcase and continue scaling into it to the point where it hit its full limit. Refiled, was able to raise a bit more in the weeks, final week or so. But they do early stage detection of cancer and heart disease out of Florida. They're now on their fourth location. We're unsure whether they're going to keep their first. And when we've visited, multiple times, they'll show us pictures on the wall and say, "This is possible because of the marketing. This is possible because of the raise. This is possible where we're now saving lives." These are pictures of people who we detected this early, and they were able to turn it all around. So that one definitely uh, resonates with us on a different level. Not to say any one campaign's more important, but as digital marketers, you hear about saving lives. It's definitely rewarding, and you want to adjust with the intent. So you're not adjusting just to make things look better. You want to keep what converts, cut high cost and low return efforts. So once a channel's had enough time to play out, you want to optimize it. Once you've optimized it extensively, you want to start phasing channels in and out, but test new variations before committing to full changes. Don't just give up on it. Reevaluate weekly and double on proven winners. Keep in mind you have to have a large enough sample size. So if you're driving 100 people to an offering with the marketing channel, that's extremely thin data. Anything underneath it, I would look at as inconclusive. Even at that level, maybe if you test with 1,000 visits, you're surpassing your 2% goals. Your 20 conversions or more, but in the first 100 you don't get any. So you want to make sure you're actually looking at this from a broader scope, not just time, but how much is actually happening. So reevaluate weekly and double down on proven winners. Follow a weekly loop. Test, optimize, scale. Again, something we say a lot, but it's all encompassing. And it's a matter of finding what is going to work, not just finding what to shut off. Shutting everything off, begs the question of what else are you going to do? How are you going to hit these goals? You want to shut off a channel. What channel are you reallocating it to? Because you need the visits, you need that traffic to hit the goals in your algorithm. You know that. So why would you slow down in the middle when you need those audiences to show up during the closing and the retargeting that occurs there? It's more a matter of what we were saying earlier, how to get them to work. So, Janette, you've worked on campaigns that were slower and then really picked up. What does that winning shift look like?
Woo-hoo, here it is. So this is Atom Beam. I know we are talking about examples of who we worked with that maybe had to have a shift. Um, they were seeing a slowdown, and what did they do, right? So Atom Beam is actually a very successful example. They've had multiple rounds. We've worked with them for several years on multiple different rounds. I know they just finished a reggae and hit their maximum. So, happy to be a part of their team. But even then, even though they were seeing success, they've had to do pivots mid-campaign. So one of the most recent ones that we've seen, and that could work for other founders, doesn't have to be this exact um, person, right? But essentially the same tactics, right? Um, Maybe finding a partnership, that third party validation. So I think I was mentioning earlier, if you have a lead investor, if you have a brand partner, maybe doing a webinar with them, right? And getting your current audience and maybe people that haven't quite invested yet, giving them a chance to hop on a live event with you, ask questions, and really have them understand the opportunity and kind of instill that fear of missing out, right? So this example is a great example, but this has Charles and Kevin O'Leary coming together for a live event, and really just showcasing why, one, Kevin O'Leary thinks it's such a great offering. The audience is able to be on board and really understand what's going on, maybe what milestones they've reached till today, also what they plan to do in the future, and just really buy into the story. So I know that this is one shift that really was able to catapult them to that next level. Um, and as I mentioned, even if you don't have a huge influencer celebrity to showcase for your mid campaign pivot, it could still be somebody in your network that is a lead investor, that is on your board of directors, or has some sort of insight in your industry to really give that third party validation, that added credibility, and that excitement for others to see. So, yeah, definitely love this tactic and have seen it work.
And this is such a great one to look at. As Jeanette mentioned, they had already run 3 Reg CFs. We worked with them on each of those. Each did over $3 million. Could even talk about slow points and pickups on those. For the Regulation A Plus campaign, there was about 5 months of pre-launch marketing, and it it was very fruitful. The first week, they did over 4 million on their Reg A because of the reservations that they had during that period. Over the next few months, they were seeing good returns. It was getting to a bit of a lull. And then this came out, which was run as an advertisement. Jeanette, you were running it across various content channels to repurpose it from there as well too. And was enough to bring audiences that were on the fence at that point to convert at outstanding conversion rate levels, and then continue from, about 8 million, 9 million, up to that 20 million point at the end of the campaign during those last 3.5 months there. So awesome example about a campaign that's doing well but could use more, and really goes off the charts from there. Easy win, tap into your close network to create early week activity. So your close network, friends, family, clients, customers, investors, brands that you've collaborated with, conference organizers, podcasts you've been a part of, people you've created content with in general. Look to get them to talk about your campaign. Could be accomplished with a brief phone call, even. You could go after email, you're going to get less of a response rate, but imagine a calendar, the next 30 days, and each day someone different, a different brand's posting about you. And then you're using some of that on your paid strategy. You're repurposing it on your content campaigns. You're pointing at it with your outreach campaigns. That's how I break it down. Content, advertising, outreach, everything kind of goes into one of those categories. But find some easy wins and really capitalize on that. What's another one, Janette?
Easy win number 2, definitely sharing exciting news. I know I'm on weekly calls with founders all the time, and they're like, "Oh, I just don't have anything to post." They're kind of feeling defeated, but you know, sometimes you have to create your wins. I know there's, different ways to maybe repurpose some of your past wins. Maybe you've been featured in a press um a press publication a few months ago. Maybe it's time for maybe people who are new to the channel or new to your offering to re-see that, right? So maybe repurposing some of your press features. It could be as simple as celebrating your milestone. People love to see that you've reached the next step in your campaign. So talk about it, be excited, share a video that you reached a milestone. Create an ad around it, let people know, hey, we reached this and we're celebrating, and it's time for you to hop on board. If you have a physical product, or if you have, whatever your offering is, if you're behind the scenes and you're making things happen and you're getting to the next step, whether it's product development, whether it's the release of a digital aspect, you want to talk about it. Those are wins. That's showing movement in your company, that's building trust. And you want to keep people afloat, you want to keep them engaged. And these are definitely things that you can weekly just continue to talk to your audience about.
Make sure you're scaling up high performing ads for broader reach. And even if it's a low multiple, but a multiple on the return on ad spend. We've had clients with, 2x, 3x return on ad spend on the pixel, and attribution's a whole nother discussion. I could talk about how, to me, that really looks more like a 6x and 9x, and it's just not tracking everything. And look to the marketing efficiency ratio, how much is being spent, how much is coming back, looking at the analytics, and how much traffic, some of the sources that are not accounted for. But scaling up high performing ads for broader reach, if you're bringing in more investors, more conversions, you're more likely to see higher value conversions, larger investments. You bring in 100 investments, maybe 5 of them are larger, and that changes the whole return level. So get it out to more people. More importantly, the social sharing, peer-to-peer marketing is the ultimate form of marketing. You can't just buy it either. It's not for investment campaigns and in a directly straight fashion, but if someone's coming in as an investor, they're probably going to share with people, especially on these campaigns. Retail investors putting in a few $100s, even a few $1,000. It's more than just the potential upside that's getting them excited. They want to be able to talk about you. They want to be able to talk about your company, your product. They want to be able to say they're a shareholder in that, and they may be bringing in more investors while doing that marketing for you. So scale it up.
Scale it up. Another one, I feel like I maybe had mentioned this with easy win number 2, but here it is again. Talking about your press features, talking about your team, and just building that excitement. So sometimes it's repurposing old things. I had a client that would do that. I mean, they were in the press all the time, but maybe what they posted in January, now they have 500 new followers to their site. They didn't get the update in January, right? So maybe it's just talking about your press updates and keeping people afloat. Just because it's kind of dated, still want to get it out there. It's still relevant. You can link to the blog post or press page, and just continue to show that momentum. There's also ways, we have publisher outreach where we're able to create some of these press wins for you. So maybe you don't have any press. There's ways around that too, as an easy win to showcase that, hey, people are still talking about us. We're still being featured. And just building that excitement. Team updates. So we've talked about the founder, but anybody in your team, you can talk about them. You can talk about their highlights, and just really showcase how they are added value to the company and really build them up. And just, as I feel like Jason says this sometimes, but he says, pull the curtain back and just kind of let people know, right? The behind the scenes and just building that trust. And I feel like team updates will definitely help to do that. Um, Keeping it fresh, keeping it exciting, and really letting people understand your company, understand the team behind it, and just building that trust and authenticity.
We live in a world that values transparency. So pull those curtains back. Absolutely. Also, re-engage leads who haven't converted. They've shown interest but have not yet invested, not yet purchased, what have you. Send updates showing traction and growth since the last contact. Uh, if you're following up with somebody on the phone, you can't just say, "How about now?" And let me tell you the same things I did last time. You have to be able to point at new breakthroughs, and they need to be headline worthy announcements at that. So send updates showing that traction, that growth since the last contact, that third party validation and social proof. Host a live Q&A to answer concerns and show transparency. Could be a webinar just like this. Could have a guest with you, another thought leader in the space like Janette. Could be a lead investor, especially if they have a large engaged audience. They're inviting people over and answer questions. Uh, some people's questions will get answered by ones that are being presented to you, or even just your answers that you're riffing on. Refresh messaging to speak directly to past objections and create that investor FOMO. So fear of missing out is a key emotion to tap into. Share milestones and progress updates often. Again, this moving ship is hitting its destination with you as the captain, and offer expiring perks, countdowns, share price increases. We'll see, a volume of investments come in during that period of time. Got some pictures here to show how it feels to miss out on investing. I think we've all felt that in one way or another at some point. And what KPIs tell the story?
Yeah. So this is kind of recapping. I know we've talked about the different channels of marketing and how we break it down. Traffic is one of the main indicators, your click-through rates. That's kind of for paid ads. For email, there's open rates, there's click-through, there's replies. For outreach, it's how many conversations are happening, how many connection messages are we getting? I'm sorry, connection um, requests and validations there. So there's different ones. All of them tell a different story, and all of us kind of indicate where we need to make a shift.
And lastly, final advice: shift budget to one audience or ad that's already working. Launch a new founder led video or creative asset on top of that, and personally reach out to 10 plus contacts and ask for support or shares of that. These are simple things you could do today that will likely increase your momentum. And it is a snowball effect on these crowd sales. It is absolutely that social dynamic you're playing off of. You want to create a bit of the line around the block, even if you have to focus on more of the audiences and channels that are working today to get you there, even if you're, launching new creatives and asking for favors. I wouldn't call it that, but asking friends to, repost and get you there. Uh, Definitely show the community that's building around what you're doing here.
I agree. Um, I hope that this was helpful. I mean, these are pretty simple steps to move your raise forward today. Um, yeah, this was awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jeanette, I was taking notes as you were speaking. Thanks so much for going into detail about your approach, about what's worked with some of the top issuers to date, as well as some of the top live campaigns right now. Uh, Audience, hope you got a lot out of today's presentation. We look to be of value. We look to be educational here. Reach out to Jeanette on LinkedIn. Connect with us. We welcome a warm marketing conversation, a warm investor acquisition conversation at any time. And test, optimize, and scale.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.